Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today brought to you by the Vancouver Giants, and Giants GM Barclay Parnett is going to join us in our next segment. In the meantime, some news regarding the Vancouver Canucks in their game in Seattle tonight. Ryan, line rushes courtesy of our friend Jeff Patterson, who's down in the Emerald City.
Yeah, I don't have all the lines, but I've got this tweet from J-Pat. How about this? Arshdeep Bains taking line rushes with Miller and Besser today. By the way, Jet Wu's also on the ice with the group of players today.
Yeah, so they've taken Suter off that line, and they've inserted Arshdeep in there. Very well. I tell you, that tells me that Rick Tocchet absolutely loved what he did in that game in Colorado. You know,
yeah,
absolutely,
and not just the amount of ice time he got, close to 14 minutes, but around 4 minutes in the third period.
Yes, he did.
So obviously, Rick Tocchet is a fan, at least for now. As we bring in NHL analyst, co-host of the Bob McCown podcast, John Shannon. John, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm great, boys. You?
Good, good. You're busy. You were in Edmonton last night. What a game that was to watch. Excellent job on the broadcast.
Thank you.
As always. It's just the Oilers local broadcasts are just tremendous. So the Bruins win 6-5 in overtime. Oilers came back. They were down 4-1 in the second period. What stood out for you, John?
Well, it's funny. What stood out for me was, and you know, I watch a lot of hockey. Sometimes my wife says too much. But I was amazed at David Pastrnak last night. I could not, and I get spoiled, you know, between Ryan's favorite guy, Austin Matthews, and watching Connor play as much as I do. I just was in awe of David Pastrnak last night. Both ends of the ice, his ability to move the puck, his ability to shoot the puck. I do watch a lot of Bruin games, but to watch him live last night was just simply amazing. It really was. He's the real deal. And it, you know, I know that's Captain Obvious stuff, but it was fun to watch. When the Bruins are in town on Saturday night at Rogers, first of all, there'll be a ton of Bruin sweaters in the crowd. You know that. But they were really impressive. It was a playoff atmosphere for most of the night, particularly when the Oilers got back into the game late in the second and early in the third.
Yeah, and one of the things that got them back in the game, you could argue this, Corey Perry, he has a fight, he scores the tying goal. In your opinion, how has, and I know Corey had his issues earlier this season, but how is he fitting in with the Oilers?
Corey, you know, Corey had off-ice issues. Corey's problems were never on the ice surface, Donnie. That's the one thing you would say. I was one of those guys when he left Anaheim, I thought he was going to retire. And here he is, how many years later, not only contributing, but being a real factor and being a barometer of what a team needs at the right time. You know, the fight, you know, the Bruins still controlled play a little bit after the fight he had with Wotherspoon in the second period. But there's no doubt that he has gained a ton of respect quickly in the dressing room with the Oilers. And can be a factor. I think we all wondered if he could keep up with the speed of the Oilers, and he's done that. You know, and I think that he's given them something they haven't had in a long period of time on a regular basis, and that's a real edge. You know, Evander Kane was the only guy for a long time doing it by himself, and Evander gets banged up every once in a while. To have Perry on one line and Kane on another, that really creates a pretty impressive duo of guys that can be the sandpaper on a team that has needed sandpaper for a while.
Hey, John, the Canucks have lost 3 straight for the first time this year. That's pretty impressive, not to go on an extended losing streak and for the first time. But you're not. Our poll question is, should you be concerned? Your thoughts on losing 3 in a row?
Well, I'll go on and vote no, because I'm not. In fact, and just in talking to a couple of people in and around the game about the Canucks, it's not a bad thing to go through some adversity now. We all know that the games are tougher. The games have a lot more grit to them between now and the end of the regular season. And I mean, you guys can answer the question better than I can. How much adversity has the team had this season?
Yeah.
And this is adversity. The game against Winnipeg was a pretty good reminder. The game in St. Paul was a fluke. It was a fluke. And so I would actually, it's like being the gymnastics judge, Donnie. You take the high score and the low score out. So take the Minnesota game out. But the Winnipeg game and the Colorado game, I think, are two games that that management would look at and say, okay, we understand what we need to do and what has to happen, and we know how close we are. So those are the two games I'd be concerned about, but at the same time, facing the adversity at the end of February is much better than having it in the first 2 or 3 games of a playoff series.
John, Austin Matthews got his 50th goal, 54th game. That's
amazing.
Amazing. On pace for 77. He just keeps putting the puck in the net on a daily basis.
Well, let me ask you this. We've started to rewatch Alex Ovechkin get close to Wayne's 892.
Yeah.
There's a good chance a decade from now that we're going to be talking about Austin Matthews getting close to 1,000.
Wow.
That he truly is in that realm of he's not McDavid, right? He's not. But pure, utter goal scorers,
yeah.
He's going to be in that realm of Alex Ovechkin. And there's a good chance by the time his career, if he stays healthy, and he appears to be through some of his health issues, whether it was bad back or bad wrist over the first 8 years of his career, he can surpass both Ovechkin and Gretzky by the time he finishes, if he can stay healthy. That's the big thing for both Gretzky and Ovechkin over the span of their careers. They didn't miss very many games because of health.
Yep.
You're a great follow on Twitter. You brought up Guile Fielder this week, and old Seattle totem player, somebody that I grew up watching when they would come into Vancouver to play the old Western League Canucks, and I appreciate that, John. But if you don't mind, I'd like to focus on somebody else that some people would consider old, but Jaromir Jagr. The Penguins did a great job in that ceremony, retiring his number. There's so much to it, the practice, the warm-up, everything, but just your memories of a young number 68.
Well, he got drafted in Vancouver, guys.
Yep.
1990. Remember, he got drafted in 1990 at BC Place.
Yep.
And I remember standing at the rail between where the clubs were and the media was, and Scotty Bowman, who doesn't get very ebullient very often, skipping like a child towards the media saying, "We're going to get Jagr. We're going to get Jagr." And I've never forgotten that. In fact, I reminded Scotty of that last week when we had him on our show. And it was truly one of the it's truly one of the great draft picks of all time. And the story behind the story is he basically, in any interviews he did with the Canucks and with other teams, he said, "Listen, I'm not coming over right away." And the only team he would come over right away for was the Pittsburgh Penguins, because he was in awe of Mario Lemieux. And the other thing was, first 2 years that Jagr came over and played, the Penguins won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
So he figured they'd do it every year.
Yeah. He made a smart move,
and it didn't work out. It didn't work out that way.
Yeah. Just the vision of Scotty, the thought of Scotty Bowman skipping.
The other thing is, and it relates to Matthews and Jagr. The one thing we don't, and this is I've learned this not the hard way, but just standing beside both of them, I don't think we realize how big these two guys are.
Yeah.
Like, Jagr's a huge man. Matthews is a really big player, and that's one of the reasons why he can be so effective on the boards and so effective with the puck. Size of the great athletes, even in our game, is just so impressive, and that's what makes them such great players.
Yeah. Corey Perry's bigger than a lot of people think. There's another example there. John, thanks for this. We could go on and on, but thanks so much.
I know. Guile Fielder. Don't get me going on Guile Fielder stories, boy. I'll tell you what.
Yeah. I could go on and on as well. I remember him well. John, thanks for this. Appreciate it.
Cheers, boys.